We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. You're listening to this on Monday. It's being recorded on Sunday, and I'm back home in Minnesota. And I can't tell you how glad I am. My wife and I, and my brother and his wife were in Portland, Maine. We went up to Bar Harbor. It was absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning. But everything I had to do with regard to the podcast was a little troublesome. I had the first 2 days covered with podcast I did previous to leaving, but the last one I had to do in the hotel room. I did it in front of my phone. Nothing fancy about it. Me just talking shit for an hour, and then I couldn't get it put up on Spotify, so it was only on YouTube. It was a fucking mess. So clearly, I need to bring a laptop with me when I go on trips in the future. Fortunately, in Georgia, I do have a laptop down there. Anyway, we're back to doing a podcast the normal way, and I'm feeling good about that. And we have a guest with us, TJ. You know TJ from the lives and from the podcast. He's also a moderator on my TikTok live. So, TJ, thanks for uh, being willing to join us on this podcast now that we get back on track.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here again. I don't make it up here very much.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm not sure why that is. Well, I know why that is. Mostly people send me a note and say, "Hey, can I be on the show today?" They'll text me or something. They'll say, "Can I be on the show today?" I'll say, "Yeah, cool," or "Tomorrow's better," but you never do that. You never reach out to me and say, "I want to be on the show." So then I have to go and the only thing I text you for two reasons. We text about a lot of different things, but I say, how about a live tonight? Because I need you as a moderator, you and Rebecca. Otherwise, it'll implode. Or
Mhm.
when I think about it, I think, well, let's have TJ on the show. So I reached out to you today, which I don't normally do. So if you don't feel special, you should fucking now.
Well, I definitely do, and I wanted to mention something about today's podcast that I heard this morning when I was listening about the email that you received today.
Oh yes, yes. I used to do shows where I read a lot of emails, and it got very taxing. And then my emails started getting buried with news information. I don't get as many emails, and they're harder to find. And knowing what you all know that I'm a lazy bastard, I'm not going to put the extra work in. So I have a way around that. But yeah, go ahead with that email. I had a feeling you might have some comments.
Well, I didn't really appreciate the way it came off, judging people on the show. Um, I don't like it when people talk shit on my friends, especially, Eric or Will or anybody, Old Soul, anyone who comes on this podcast always has great insights. They all have different areas of expertise. And for people to shit on that kind of pisses me off. Um, I just think that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that bring good information to this podcast. And then we have people coming in, poo pooing it because the sky is falling all the time. And, you know, they're running around with their hair on fire because they're scared of Donald Trump or whatever their problem is. And it's just silly um, for them to say something like that. I just thought it was kind of in poor taste. I mean, what was he actually saying? I like your show, but fuck you, your guests. I really,
Well, well, I took offense to it too because I felt like he was picking on a guy who has a disability in Eric. And when I say disability, what I'm talking about his trouser deficiency.
yeah, he doesn't wear pants on the podcast, so that is true.
He, we should probably tell folks he does. That's a dumb joke one of us said, and then TJ just pounds it into the ground. So I thought I'd add to the pounding into the ground.
Now,
I
now
mean,
hold on. I
Eric,
I didn't I didn't pound it into the ground. Jay pounded it into the ground.
yeah, you're right, Jay. You're right, Jay did. But you're right about Eric. What people have to, well, I know most people understand, save for this person who wrote this email, that everybody that comes on this show are just people of a like mind. they're really not gaining much out of it other than getting a chance to get their perspectives off their chest and out to an audience.
Right.
So to shit on them, I mean, when I have Eric on the show, I know exactly how the show's going to go. When I have
Right.
Ed on the show, I know how it's going to go. Not everybody likes everybody, but I will tell you this, and I've told you this before. You can come here and shit on me all you want because I've been doing this show for a long time and I've got my share of shit. I've been married 42 years. I'm used to getting shit. I've got a 5-year old granddaughter who's been giving me shit from day one, so I'm used to it. I know how to deal with that shit. But when I got people coming onto my show giving me their time for nothing in return other than to inform people who are listening, fuck you. Don't do that. Don't do that. I will
Right.
block you because I don't give a shit. Um,
Unless
I
it's
used to,
British John. Unless it's
well,
British
yeah,
John, then it's okay.
yeah, you can tear him up all you want. British John was supposed to come on the show. I gave him my number. I never heard from him.
What the fuck?
Tony Michaels reached out to me. He said, I got this guy on YouTube. His name is Machine Pun Kelly. He says he wants
Hmm.
you on the show. Gave him my phone number. Never heard from him. So I, it doesn't really matter. We just do what we do when we're doing it. What did you think when I used to do the shows where it was all emails or mostly emails? What was your thought? How did you feel about that show?
The shows that were all emails,
Yeah.
they were good. I liked them. I kind of liked it when you read a few emails and then kind of went on the rest of the show instead of the whole
Yeah.
show being emails. That was a little better. But yeah, no, the email shows were great, except for when my brother sends you an email. I didn't like any of those, but that's just because
Well,
it's my brother.
I like the email shows, but they got a little taxing. Some people kind of went off the deep end. They were very clever, very creative. But when it got to be 2, 3 pages for an email, it got to be hard to read because at that
Right,
point, if you're going to write me a 2 to 3 page email, you need to come on the fucking show and start
right.
talking.
And there
Same
were
for
some
yourself,
good,
as well.
yeah, there were some good emailers too, like Panzer. Remember Panzer?
Yeah. And I still get
He
some
was
things
great.
from him now and again. Yeah. Panzer's
Yeah.
great. Uh, there's one guy I haven't heard from. People ask me about him all the time. I haven't heard from him for a long time. I met him when I was in Virginia last year. Garage Door Jeff. Where the fuck is Garage Door Jeff?
Oh
Did I piss
shit.
him
Yeah.
off? Did I
Yeah.
piss him
He's in.
off?
He's in the ether.
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody have things in their life, so I'm not going to give him
Right.
any shit. However, I
Yeah.
do like the email shows. I do like the idea that people have an opportunity to ask a question or get their point across. So I thought I'd do something to
Sure.
make it a little easier for them. Emails are a problem because I get so many emails, it's hard to keep track of them, and it's a big, long process to get them all put together and then read them. And it's kind of personally taxing to read nothing but emails. Doing a whole show of emails, that's just way too much. So, with the idea of giving more people an opportunity to ask questions and make comments, um, and keep them relatively short, you can go a little time, but short. What I've come up with is a way that people can text me questions, comments, what have you. Now, I'm not giving you my fucking phone number. I give some people my phone number, but I know where they live. So if I had to track them down for whatever crazy shit they might do, I could do that. But I have a tablet that I rarely use. I only use it for certain things. And with a tablet, an Android tablet with a cell service, you can text that tablet.
Right.
So I want to give the folks an opportunity to send their questions. I will look at it every day and I'll take these shorter text messages and I'll read them. I won't do a whole show on them, but I will read them to begin a show, or maybe I'll do a separate short thing. That number is, now people take this down. I will repeat it at the end of the show. So if you miss it, if you want to send a text, ask a question or make a comment, send it to 612-900-1057. That's 612-900-1057. And I'll mention it again at the end of the show and we'll see how that works. So you'll get a chance to get your voice heard. But if you want to write a long text, send me a text and say, I want to be on the show, and we'll set that fucking thing up. It's easy as
And
hell.
And no sending any dick pics, everybody.
Yeah, please, no, no pornography. I'm 65 years old. I'm beyond that shit. Um, but well, the weird thing is, TJ, you were probably as I was doing the Rational Boomer on TikTok and doing the podcast, you were the first one to really reach out to me directly on DMs and
Yeah,
stuff like that. And the first thing I thought, because I'm just doing what I'm doing, I'm not thinking much of it. And when you reached out and you were kind of enthusiastic about what I was doing, you even had you and your wife made up T-shirts with my logo on it. I go, wow, this motherfucker might be crazy. He might be a
I
little
still
crazy.
I still
And
wear
as it
that
turned
shirt
out,
sometimes.
I bet you do. And as it turns out, you were fucking crazy. I think
True.
I think your wife Rebecca helped keep you somewhat balanced, but you're a little crazy. Um, so now I've gotten to the point where I know a lot of people who are emailing me or listen to the show or I hear DMs from. So I'm feeling comfortable with people generally, and the text may be a good way to do it. Um, I wanted to talk to you. Reason I'm glad you're here because you brought something up to me. We all know about this tearing down of the East Wing by the Trump administration and building some 90,000 square foot ballroom, which may end up looking, well, will be bigger than the White House, which will mean it will become an eyesore and a monstrosity. But you said something interesting, and because you are a labor leader in Pennsylvania, you would know this. You were telling me that Donald Trump is using completely non-union labor on tearing the White House down and building this fucking monstrosity. Is that true?
That's true. There was a report from the group's called LIUNA, and it stands for Laborers International Union of North America. So it's the laborers' union, if you will, the general laborers. So they had pointed out about, I think it was 6 or 7 days ago, that all the workers on the site were non-union. So Donald Trump's using a non-union contractor to do all that work, which is generally not the way it goes. I mean, things are usually put out for public competitive bid, but you know, nobody ever saw any of that. I have a feeling that this job was just handed to somebody's buddy, um, and no one knows where the funding is coming from. They're saying that it's private money. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
And if there's public tax dollars in it, and they didn't put it out for public competitive bid, that's a violation of law. And there's also, if there's public money in it, they're supposed to pay what's called Davis-Bacon prevailing wage. So they have to pay prevailing wage to the workers on the job site, um, inclusive to their trade. So whatever the prevailing wage is for labor, they pay the labor. Whatever the prevailing wage rate is for carpenter, they have to pay that wage to the carpenter. So I have a feeling that not only was it not publicly competitively bid, there's more than likely federal dollars in it, and they're probably violating Davis Bacon. So everything about it stinks, all of it.
So what happens if this, you were suggesting that there may not be proper permits or that sort of thing either? I mean, why would there be? Donald Trump thinks you can do anything.
Well, I don't know that with any certainty, but I some federal properties are exempt from permits. So I don't, like, for example, in my city we have a VA hospital, and the city inspectors or the code enforcement people are really not allowed to go there. It all has to be federal inspectors. The locality has no jurisdiction. I know that there's some federal properties that are exempt, but I don't think that the White House is one of them. So they may not even have the proper federal permits to even do what they're doing.
What do you think the odds are that there's illegal immigrants working on this?
99%. Like I told you the other day in a text. I mean, they should send some photographers down there with telephoto lenses and see who's coming in and out of there. because you you know none of it's on the up and up.
Well, and if they're not paying the prevailing rates to these people, it almost guarantees this would be immigrants or illegal immigrants doing it. Because the average
Yes,
carpenter, the average plumber, the average electrician wouldn't go there to work for less money than they could going someplace else.
absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And it happens a lot. Um, it it happens on it. I'm sure it happens in your state too. That you have state prevailing wage laws, just like we do in Pennsylvania and many other states that aren't right to work states. Um, and the contractors will violate the law by what we call misclassification of workers. So they'll try something like they'll say, "Oh, this guy, he's not an employee. He's a 1099 subcontractor, so we don't have to pay him prevailing wage because he's a subcontractor." In Pennsylvania, that's illegal. We finally got them to make that illegal. But what they're ultimately doing is they're cheating the worker. They're calling them a subcontractor, not taking out any taxes out of their money, and they're paying them below the rate total package cost of the prevailing wage rate. So they're cheating. They're stealing from workers is what it is. It's called wage theft, and it's very common practice for non-union contractors to do that.
Let me ask you this. If this was a normal situation, say in Pennsylvania or any other state,
Mm-hmm.
and a building, a government building, or any other building was being built like this with all the potential flaws and uh, illegal activities in doing that, what ultimately would happen in that situation? How would that be dealt with in any given municipality or state or even federal government? Knowing
Well,
it, if it was exposed and there were people that were willing to hold him accountable.
well, I imagine on day one there'll be pickets up there. So um, the whatever labor unions were involved in that particular dispute, whether right now it's probably operating engineers and laborers. So they would probably put pickets out. You probably see that big inflatable rat be blown up out in front of the building, and then depending on what happened and what's going on with what they're doing, whether it's misclass or wage theft or um, not publicly competitive bid or whatever it is, they would probably file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Labor. That's usually the course of action. But again, um, that at this point would probably be pretty ineffective because they're they're not going to hear anything about it. They're just going to ignore it.
What it sounds like with this particular building, it doesn't sound like there were any really pre planning to this. It was like they just whipped it out
Mm-mm.
quickly and they're trying to do it as quickly as they possibly can, which would suggest it may not turn out to be the highest quality build.
I would agree with that. And you know, the White House is under the purview of the Parks Department of the U.S. Department of Interior, and so when you do something of that nature or that scale, it has to be approved by Congress. You just can't go and bulldoze a national park and say, "Oh, we're going to put a pool and a spa in here." You can't do that. It's not in compliance with law. Not that any of that matters, because half the things going around right now are not in compliance with law. But I would imagine that the U.S. Department of Interior, the Secretary of Interior, um, is not doing anything to stop it or pushing back on it because it's a Trump appointment.
Yeah, and that's what you just said there is something that people always push back on me, and I'll say, well, you can't do that without Congress. You said he can't bulldoze something and do this and do that without Congress. However, it's exactly what the fuck he's doing. Is there
Right.
any is there any retroactive kind of action that can be taken once these clowns are out of power? I mean, Donald Trump can do anything because he's got all his little cronies in any place that might hold him accountable, like the DOJ, uh, like the Office of the Interior. Those people work for him directly, even though that's not supposed to be the case. They're terrified of him, so they're not going to do anything now. Is there anything that can be done after the fact when Donald Trump's cronies are no longer there, besides
Well,
being prosecuted?
possibly, but it kind of remains to be seen because at this point, we don't know if a crime was committed about this. Somebody willingly did something that broke the law in order for them to do it. Um, that's probably the case. So potentially there could be some criminal action. There definitely could be civil action. People could sue um, the federal government for causing this damage um, to a historic building. I mean, the East Wing of the White House, I think, was built in 1902. It's definitely a historic
Yeah.
building, and that's a big no no. But here's the other thing too that people don't think about or realize is that East Wing is so old that it stands to reason that it's full of asbestos.
Yeah.
It's got lead paint in it. Tearing down the building with a giant dust cloud, which probably has asbestos in it, probably has lead in it, and it probably has free silica. And this dust cloud is just coming off into the public. I mean, they made a half-assed attempt to try to hose down the building while they were demoing it, but I could see from some videos that the dust was just coming out of there like crazy. So potentially there's another problem there where people could say, "Hey, I work at the Treasury or I work here next door, and I breathed in all that contamination." So there's also a potential problem with the EPA. So I think probably in the end, when this all goes to the wayside, there's going to be some repercussions for some people who didn't do what they were supposed to do, whether it be civilly or criminally.
Now, a 90,000 square foot building, that sounds like a pretty big project, especially if it's actually bigger than the White House. Donald
Yeah.
Trump is starting this build in October of 2025. How long would it normally take to build something like that under normal circumstances, especially when you're in a climate where you do get winter, at least part of the time?
Well, I would say, you could construct a 90,000 square foot warehouse in a matter of a few months, but this is significantly different than that.
Yeah.
Because generally a building like that would be, a steel erected building with, steel panels, and they pour the concrete. I mean, it's relatively easy to do. However, what, and I haven't seen any plans, but some of the drawings that they're showing are, these visuals, that it happens to be very ornate.
Yeah.
So when
Big
when you have
surprise.
some, yeah, when you have something that has a lot of detail, whether it's the plastering and all these things, and chandeliers, um, different type of decorative things on the ceiling. That stuff takes a lot of time because there's a lot of detail oriented work with specialty crafts. So I would say the construction of that would, based upon its size and its function, would probably be a 3 year build.
Okay. Then you have to factor in one other factor in this whole thing, something that I talk about a lot. If Donald Trump's involved, it's going to get fucked up. Something's going to
Right.
get fucked up. I mean, is there a possibility that it doesn't even get fully built by the time he's either dead or gone? It's still be going to be in the process of being built before after Donald Trump has choked on a Big Mac or been thrown out of office.
Well, I certainly won't discount the idea of that being reality. I mean, if he were to, whatever happens to him and he was no longer in power, I would think that no one's going to keep pursuing that, but they may have to because they can't leave it half built, and maybe they could repurpose it, so maybe they would continue building it with the idea that maybe they can you know cordon it off and make it into offices or repurpose that whole area into maybe something more expansive than the East Wing actually was. I don't think it would be intuitive if the building starts coming out of the ground. It's probably not intuitive to quit building it because you know maybe they could make some alterations and make it something that's functional, not just Donald Trump's playroom. You know what I mean?
Well,
So because
one of the,
they did lose the East Wing, and there was offices in there and important things that happened in that East Wing. So they're going to have to replace that somehow. So I would
yeah,
imagine even if something happened, they may continue to construct it with alterations to maybe make it something more functional and usable for um, the White House staff and what have you.
I was thinking Richard Nixon put a bowling alley in the White House when he was in office. Um, Obama put in a basketball court when he
Oh
was
my
in
God!
office.
Oh my God! They put in a basketball court over the
You
tennis
know,
court. Remind you?
yeah, yeah. Now I'm thinking you could do one of two things with 90,000 square feet. You could put in a very nice pickleball complex, fucking
Yeah,
pickleball, yeah. Or you could put in a mud wrestling pit. That might be in line with what Donald Trump might appreciate. Get some mud wrestling in there and some wet t-shirt contests and shit.
sure.
That that would be, you said this place was very ornate. I was thinking more terms like gaudy,
Gaudy.
tack, gaudy, tacky, and pimp-like.
Yes. No, I'd agree with that. Um, maybe they could
It's
put
embarrassing.
it is. Maybe they can put like a WWE wrestling ring in there, and then Linda McMahon can come out, and JD Vance can wrestle Marco Rubio as the main event or something. What
Well,
do you think?
they are going to have an event in front of the White House, aren't they? In like next June around Trump's birthday, assuming he's still alive. I heard they're going to have a WWE event there. That should be fucking entertaining.
Are you joking?
No, I'm
Are you,
serious. They announced that they were going to have a
you gotta be
WWE event. No, swear to God.
you you gotta be fucking kidding me.
You,
Well,
you, you know what they should do? They should just tear down the whole White House and put up like three double wides. Same
yeah,
effect. Put some
yeah.
double wides in there, and maybe a couple fire pits, maybe a shooting range. It's unbelievable. When people hear this, it's going to be October 27th, 4 days from November 1. We are still in this shutdown, and the Republicans are doing everything they can to blame it on the Democrats. Ain't
Hmm.
working. Check the polls. Check how people are talking. It isn't working. And they should know it's not working, but they still keep doubling down and trying to convince people that it's the Democrats. It's almost silly.
Well, it's working with the MAGAs still, but the rest of America, like the halfway sensible Republicans, and I know that seems like a term that doesn't exist anymore, but the halfway sensible Republicans are seeing that it's bullshit. They know that what Mike Johnson is saying is absolute bullshit. The MAGAs are not convinced yet, but it's about to hit them in the face like a train because if
Yeah.
you know the thing about the SNAP, the whole thing with the SNAP benefits is that um, 80% of the people that are on SNAP benefits are from counties that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
80%.
Yeah.
So when if the SNAP doesn't come here in November, it's going to hit them like a ton of bricks, and those MAGAs are finally going to taste a little bit of the pain because right now all they've been doing is sitting back and enjoying owning the libs and watching the libs cry and watch the libs suffer. But they don't know that the rooster's coming home to roost here right quick. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how their perception is come the end of November or when they have Thanksgiving dinner and no food on the table.
Well, the thing about it is they want to try to blame the Democrats for not opening up the government, not voting for what they want, and there's good reason for them not to do that. But the fact of the matter is there's been contingency plans for situations just like this with SNAP. If you have a government shutdown, there is a reserve in the government
Hmm.
that the administration can apply to the SNAP benefits so there is no interruption in the SNAP benefits. Donald Trump and the Republicans have refused to use those reserves. So if you want to know who's cutting off SNAP, it is Donald Trump and the Republicans. There's no question about it.
Well, I'm actually a little worried because you cut millions of people off of food, they'll start doing crazy shit,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean real crazy, and that will spark up a lot of violence. So I'm, that's a concerning thing. And I think Mike Johnson and the Republicans are playing with fire by doing this because this is going to come back and burn them badly. And
Yeah.
it may burn them so bad they can't control it.
Well, that's it. That's exactly right. It's one thing to make racist comments or call people libtards, but once you take away food from people's children, they're going to get pissed, and there is a potential for violence. And everybody says, "Well, that's what he wants. We'll do the insurrection." Look, there's 43 million people that get SNAP. If all 43 million said, "Fuck this, we're going to the White House," go ahead, try to stop them. You're not going to be able to
Can't.
stop them.
No, they couldn't stop them. What's their 3 million service members active duty? They couldn't stop 43 million people.
Yeah, no, you couldn't. And it wouldn't be just them. It would be people that don't get SNAP that love people who get SNAP. And they'd want to support them too. Now, of course,
You
the
know,
Democrats, go ahead.
the Trumplafucks like to bitch about, people getting SNAP, even though they're the biggest recipients of it. Rural white people are the biggest recipients of SNAP. But the ones that don't, like the, working class Trumplafucks that maybe make enough where they don't get, they like to talk shit about that and people living off the system. Do you know the average person in this country pays $36 a year for SNAP benefits? You know how
Yeah.
much corporate subsidies are per person in America? $750 per person in America on corporate subsidies. So who's really robbing the cradle? Corporate
Yeah.
America is. And they're worried about $36 going to SNAP out of their tax money every year because they don't understand anything about the numbers. When you add Medicare, welfare, and SNAP all together, it's only like 8% of the entire national budget. 8%.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we spend almost $1 trillion a year on the military. The logic is it's such a logical fallacy that they believe that they're getting, somebody's getting over on them. Like, do you think these people, if they had the choice between having a job that paid $35 an hour or being on government assistance, they'd pick the government assistance? That doesn't make any fucking sense. They're
No.
just they live in a delusional realm where you know their whole attitude is fuck or hooray for me and fuck everybody else. That's
It,
the world they live in.
and that's where the Republicans have been successful with their narrative. People will
Yes,
say the Democrats' narrative is not good enough, but you have to understand the narrative that the Republicans spew. They're spewing it to stupid motherfuckers. So you can sell them pretty much anything. You can tell them that all these people, all these brown people are taken away from you. That's why you're suffering. They don't come up with
right.
answers to fix their suffering. They come up with people to blame, and that's the problem. And these people are dumb, so they don't hold their feet to the fire and ask them to do something. Now, the Democrats in the shutdown, I have to be honest, I'm very surprised that they're standing as strong as they are and not bending to the Republicans, because generally they do. But they're in kind of a tight situation now. If they bend to the Republicans and the subsidies go away, then all of a sudden people lose health care, and people who
Mm-hmm.
have health care, their premiums will go up by 100 to 400%. It would be untenable for people to continue to pay for health care. So the Democrats have to stand strong. Are you surprised that they haven't given in at this point?
A little bit. Um, I kind of felt like Chuck Schumer would give in, but he didn't.
Yeah.
So even though I don't like Chuck Schumer, fuck him. He needs to get the fuck out. I don't like him, but I will give him credit for sticking by it and holding on and sticking by his guns. I thought for sure he'd cave, but he didn't cave. So they need to stick this out and make the Republicans eat this because it's no matter how they try to spin the narrative, it squarely falls onto them.
Don't you agree that now that they're in it, the Democrats, they almost can't back down now. They can't
No,
because they would look
right.
way worse in the situation.
Well, that's been the whole problem all along. Is that the perception of the political parties from the working class is the Democrats are weak, and if
Yeah.
they bail on this thing, they're just going to look weak. And that's been the whole thing. Is that you know the Trump-a-fucks feel like the Republicans are out fighting for them, and quite frankly, they kind of are. But in a bad way, that's going to fuck them over. But they
Yeah.
don't know; they're not smart enough to know that. But that's the perception, and that's the problem. Is the Democrats have to turn that perception around and show that they're willing to dig in and fight, not just give in and give them what they want. So as long as they keep on this, they have hope to maybe win over some more Americans that will realize, hey, the Democrats just stuck up for me, and now I still have health care instead of getting 114% increase on my ACA. So that will matter, and people will begin to realize that the Democrats will fight.
Well, and people have to understand what's going on the Republican side and with Donald Trump. Donald Trump comes out. If you shut the government down, we're going to lay everybody off. If it's shut down, we're going to end Democrat programs, whatever the fuck that is. This guy's a
I don't know.
bullshitt. SNAP is hardly a Democratic program. But you understand what he's doing there. He wants his way, so he's making threats. He
Right,
makes the threats in hopes that the sensitive Democrats say, oh, no, we can't do that, so we'll bend a knee to you. He's trying
right,
to impose his will on the Democrats, and it's not working. And that's exactly what you need to do to a bully. Don't give in
right.
to a bully, slap the taste out of his mouth, and keep pushing him back. So I'm proud of the Democrats for doing that. And the unfortunate thing is that people are going to suffer because of it. But
True.
this could be easily fixed. You know, we're hearing about how Donald Trump is getting money from some clown billionaire. His name is Mellon. $130 million to pay the military,
Yeah.
but it ain't enough.
No.
It's a nice gesture, but it's not enough to pay the military. So he's putting it out there as if he's saving this whole thing through some buddy of his that's just going to hand over $130 million. My problem with it is, at least we know who it is now. He's a billionaire banker and railroad guy. I think he's part of the family with Carnegie Mellon School. Old money.
Yeah.
But the question is, what's he getting in return? Because you can't
Right.
convince me that he's given it to Donald Trump for nothing. At least get a little influence, and influence peddling is a little illegal too.
Yeah. Well, this is not a charitable donation. This is
No,
it's just another quid pro quo. That's all it's. And Eric made a video about this, and I actually commented on it. And he said, "Well, what do they get?" And I said, "Quid pro quo. There's going to be something in exchange for it, because Donald Trump doesn't do anything unless it's transactional. He doesn't do anything unless it benefits him. He doesn't care if the military gets paid or not. He don't give a fuck about that at all. But if he can do, you know, look like the good guy and then get something in return on the side, he's going to cut a deal with somebody. And that's exactly what he's doing here. We just don't know what that deal is.
at the very least, I would think on that 130 million, he's taking the customary taste off of it, maybe a
Oh, yeah,
percentage off the top.
no doubt. He probably got it in crypto because that's where his money's all being funneled through right now. Is meme coin.
You know, if I was in crypto now, I'd be nervous. Remember when Donald Trump wanted to own a team in the NFL and they said, fuck no, get the fuck out of
Right.
here. So then he bought a team in the USFL back in 80, 81, something like that. And he had the New Jersey team or something. Um,
Yes.
and Donald Trump was not doing well as owner there, but he convinced the USFL to go into competition with the NFL, which was ill advised to say the least. And
Right.
shortly after that, the USFL folded and died, thanks to Donald Trump. Another failure by Donald Trump. But I got to tell you, if crypto's a little weird anyway, I never bought into crypto. I don't understand it. It's not tangible to me. I don't
Right.
trust it. But if Donald Trump is your poster boy for crypto, I would take my money out of crypto because he will certainly fuck it up.
Well, Donald Trump doesn't have crypto. He has grifto. That's what it
Yes,
is. It's
true.
grifto. His meme coin is grifto. So, but yeah, I see your point. Some people, I mean, I have some crypto. I bought a little bit of it in Bitcoin just to see, and it's gone up. If I ever wanted to cash out of it, I have a little more than what I started with. You know, um, but we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars flowing through that meme coin. I mean, he basically opened it up for world leaders to because you can't track any of it. It goes through the blockchain and it's untraceable. So he's getting kickbacks from who knows where, adversaries, anyone, China, anywhere. He's getting kickbacks, and they're going through crypto, and no one's going to be able to chase it down and see where it came from.
Well, exactly. And I don't want to shit talk anybody who's involved in crypto. You do what you want with your money. I just see some things that are kind of fishy about it in the sense that people who started the crypto thing, uh, it wasn't worth a lot of money and then it exploded and worth tons of money. We've got people who became billionaires. We have one billionaire that got caught with money laundering and fraud and went to jail. And then
Yep.
Donald Trump released him, the guy who led up something called Binance. And it was funny because
Yeah.
somebody asked Donald Trump about the guy he pardoned from Binance,
Hmm.
and he didn't have any clue what they were talking about. He goes, well, I pardoned a
No.
lot of people. Well, that's a good answer, dumb fuck. But my point is when you start this thing and it explodes and it makes a bunch of money and more people come in, isn't that the definition of a fucking Ponzi scheme or or a pyramid scheme?
Yeah, it could be. Certainly, it could be. There is a lot of people that bought into Bitcoin early that are really rich now because of that. But one thing I noticed is after it blew up, it slowed down. And
Yeah.
it, watching the crypto market is kind of like watching the stock market. It kind of moves up and down on the daily,
Yeah.
So, I put some money in. I didn't put like my life savings or anything. Wouldn't take that kind of risk. But like I put a little bit of money into it and you know, it's been growing slowly, but I'm not making tons of money on it, is what I'm getting. I probably could have invested it in the market and got the same result, really. But um, yeah, the problem is the meme coins. There's they call them shit coins. These coins come out and people buy into them. They put a bunch of money and it's all a bunch of hype, and then all of a sudden it goes, from 100 down to zero, and then you lost a bunch of money on it. So
Right.
it definitely is risky. I'll say that.
Well, I don't invest in crypto for one very good reason. I have two grandkids now, and all discretionary money goes to toys and clothes for those
Right.
grandkids. So I'd love to invest in crypto, but I don't have the extra cash because of those damn kids. Um, I forgot. Were you in the military?
No.
No, neither was I. Um, but I want to talk about our peacetime president, the president that was not going to have any new wars, and now
Hmm.
seemingly on the verge of going after Venezuela. And I have a theory about this, and I'm wondering what you think about it. Remember when he first started talking about going into Mexico, bombing Mexico, going in on foot to Mexico, and killing the cartel members? Remember when he said that?
Yeah, of course.
You haven't heard him talk about that much lately, have you? Somebody must have came to him and said, Donnie, that's not a good idea. But a
No,
bully's got a bully. A bully's got a bully. So he finds another brown country full of brown
right?
people in Venezuela. He starts bombing boats. He starts sending ships there. He sent an aircraft carrier there. He's talking about boots on the ground in Venezuela to attack Venezuela. I think Donald Trump needs to do something to show, at least in his mind, that he's powerful. And I think he may very well go into Venezuela. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with you. And he said something that in the press conference that didn't make a lot of sense to me. And it kind of proves to me that he's lying. They're lying about this whole boat thing.
Yeah.
They said Donald Trump said, and it was the stupidest thing that he said. He said that after the boats were hit with the missile strike, there was dust all over the water, which absolutely makes no fucking sense, right? Like if they
Yeah.
blew up the boat, there wouldn't be dust; it would be wet and it would just go in the water, right?
Right.
Um, but he was saying it was fentanyl, and that's the fuck up because Venezuela is not a country that is known for delivering fentanyl to smuggle across the United States. Mexico, yeah, the cartels definitely buy the precursors from China. They get shipped to Mexico and they manufacture it in Mexico. So, yeah, fentanyl does come through Mexico. But Venezuela, the worst thing that happens is some cocaine moves from Colombia through Venezuela and then into the Caribbean. Yeah, that goes on for sure. But Donald Trump said there was all this fentanyl in the water out, from this Venezuelan boat. That doesn't really square with the actual numbers on drug trafficking in that region because they don't produce fentanyl at any level that would be a smuggling level in Venezuela. It doesn't make any sense. But to go back to your point, I I absolutely think they're going to keep pushing this false narrative about the drug smuggling, and they're going to go get the cartels and all. They're going to keep pushing that, and I think it'll. I don't know if they'll put boots on the ground. That seems a little bit of a reach. They'll probably stop him from doing that, but I guarantee you'll see some missile strikes go into land for sure.
Really. How do
Yeah,
you
that's
think
what
the
I
rest
think.
of the how do you think the rest of the world's going to respond to that? Seemingly because it seems pointless. I mean, he's bombing what 20-foot boats in the ocean down off the coast of South America as if they are trafficking these drugs in these tiny boats all the way to America. You're going to get them thousands of miles away and say, "Okay, we saved us from drugs."
Yeah, it makes no sense because the boats that they're using would have to stop and fuel like a ridiculous amount of like to get from Venezuela to Miami, like that would be you'd have to refuel like 30 freaking times on those boats. It would take for it's not a good way to do that. It's not a good way to. So I think that they're lying, and we're hearing reports from fishermen that have disappeared that are went out fishing and now they're gone. I think that there's going to be hell to pay because they're lying about these boats. And I mean, since when do we just willy nilly just kill people because they're on a boat you think might have drugs on it? That's not how we've ever dealt with that problem. The,
Well,
even, if they came
no.
close to U.S. waters, the Coast Guard would deal with that. They would stop them, detain them, search their boat. Like we don't just, we've never gone out and just took the Navy and fired missiles at boats because we suspected them of smuggling drugs. That that's out of touch with reality. It doesn't even make any sense. Why would you do that? Like you suspect it, then you would send the Coast Guard to stop them. But because they're so far away from the continental U.S., the Coast Guard isn't out there doing that because they're not nowhere near that. That's the whole point. They're nowhere near the United States. It doesn't. It's 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 all theatrics, and they're killing people for no reason.
And there's even been a leader of a country, the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, called Donald Trump a murderer and has a particular instance where a Colombian citizen was killed, was not a drug trafficker, was just a fisherman who was having trouble with his boat motor, and he
Right.
called Donald Trump a murderer, which I think is a pretty realistic description of what Donald Trump is doing. Now, of course, Donald Trump gets mad at this. You better shut up, or I'm going to take all the money we send you. I don't know that that's shut up the president, but I got to think there's going to be other countries stepping up and speaking out as they become more brave and as Donald Trump becomes more weak.
Well, I honestly believe that this is not an idea that Donald Trump came up with because he's not smart enough to come up with something like this. I
Yeah, I
actually
agree.
think it's somebody else in, whether it's Hegseth or someone in DHS, Christy Nome, who knows who it is, but somebody else came up with this thing to propagandize all the, news. It's a distraction, of course, from the
Yeah.
Epstein files, more distractions. But they propagandized this, you know, and but it wasn't Donald Trump's idea. So they blow these boats up and they go back and tell Donald Trump what they did, and they tell him, "Oh, it was drug smugglers." And Donald Trump thinks they're doing a good job. He thinks that that's the way you handle this stuff. It's mind blowing that people they're trying to normalize this stuff is what they're trying to do. That's the end goal of them, creating these kinds of attacks on innocent people and trying to normalize it and say, oh, well, we blew them up because they were smuggling drugs, even though they don't have any proof. And, Carolyn Levitt's up on the podium sweating because she knows they can't provide any evidence that these were actual drug smugglers other than I trust me, bro, I said so.
Yeah, that's the impression I get with Donald Trump. He doesn't know nothing about nothing. I mean, like I
No.
said, he
Fuck
was
no.
asked about somebody he pardoned 2 days ago, and he didn't know who the fuck you were talking about. I'm thinking people around him are just throwing things on his desk, and he's signing them, and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. His cognitive abilities are slipping, and he's just stupid in the first place. And I think that's where the problems lie. We've got too many cooks in the kitchen, and they're all fucking crazy. They're
Right.
all looking to do something to distract attention from something else, and we end up getting quite the shit show.
Yeah, and not only are they trying to create a distraction, but they're doing stuff that's just straight fucking evil. I mean,
Yeah.
that's evil to do, to blow up a boat without knowing who was. They don't know who was aboard that vessel. They don't know that if they were drug smugglers or not. They're lying about the whole thing. It's just straight up fucking evil. They're just doing it as a distraction, like murdering people to distract them away from other things. That's insane. It's insane.
Well, well, it is, and how he's dealing with other countries is really a problem for this country because we are going to be isolated. Let's take what he was doing with Canada. He has the tariffs with Canada, which is causing us all kinds of problems, will continue to cause us problems. But then the premier of Ontario starts running an ad, I think even in the States, talking about Donald Trump's tariffs and how bad they are and using a speech from everybody's favorite Republican, Ronald Reagan. Well, this was
Right.
embarrassing for Donald Trump. This was embarrassing for Donald Trump. And we know Donald Trump hates being embarrassed. That's the worst thing you can do to him. So he says, we're just not going to do any trade with Canada. And at first, it seemed like they were going to say, fuck you. We're already fucked in this deal. So we're just going to keep it going. But they did stop the ads, which I was disappointed in. But Donald Trump basically said, well, you didn't stop it fast enough, so we're going to add another 10%. And that's just how Donald Trump behaves. What he's not thinking is the effects it's going to have on this country and the effects it's going to have on Canada. It's going to be 10% extra on top of the bullshit he's already got is really going to fuck things up even more.
Right. But I gotta say, that was a class A troll on Donald Trump. That was
It was.
that was numero uno in the book. I mean, they hit him with and then on top of hitting him with that Reagan speech on tariffs, Donald Trump went back out and said it was AI and it was all fake. He said that speech never happened. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
good
it's
luck trying to
crazy.
sell that. Yeah, it
It,
is pretty ridiculous.
yeah, and the effects of adding more tariffs on the Canada. First of all, you know, they might as well just take that USMCA and rip that thing up and throw it out because Donald Trump's not following any of it at all. Um, and then he talks shit on it when he's the one that fucking negotiated. Figure that one out. Oh, it was a bad deal, but he's the one that made the fucking deal.
Yeah, well,
It's
that's
just
what I mean. It's like he doesn't remember anything or he doesn't know
no,
anything.
no. And USMCA, was it a good deal? I don't know, not really. I mean, all it was NAFTA too. I mean, that's pretty much
Yeah.
what it was. It was probably a little bit of an improvement from the first one, but not really much. It's the same deal, you know. And when they were doing that, he said he's going to make the best deal, and he was all proud of it. And now he's saying whoever made that deal was stupid or whatever. Well, it was you, motherfucker. You're the one that made the fucking deal. But
But
you know, they might as go ahead.
what he did with that deal was basically what a lot of new management does with anything. They take an
Yeah,
existing product, they change it slightly, and then put a new name on it as if it was
right.
their idea. It's kind of like the peace plan with Israel and Hamas. He
Yeah.
didn't write that peace plan.
Fuck.
Um, Joe Biden and his administration wrote it and handed it to them. And then he didn't even implement it right because there is no ceasefire. They're still fucking fighting and bombing each other.
Right. There's no ceasefire. It, it's a joke. It really is a joke. And and the thing that with this tariff with Canada, I mean, it's just going to get worse because most of our lumber comes from Canada, and
Yeah.
the prices of lumber. I remember during the pandemic, a two by four was like $7. It's going to be at those levels again, where the prices of lumber are going to go way up, and that affects a lot of shit, especially the construction industry. We have a housing shortage. Now, no, not only do we have a lack of manpower to construct those things, we're going to have a shortage of materials because of the tariffs. It's going to be too it cost ineffective to build anything. So
What
the
what
housing
what
market's
what is it?
toast.
What is it about the labor shortage? I mean, for example, I heard somebody talking about the auto industry. Okay, and there
Mm-hmm.
apparently is a huge shortage in technicians. Now, a lot of these people are union people. Why are we seeing a shortage of people in jobs that are relatively important and relatively well paying?
Well, do you mean when you say technician? Do you mean manufacturing
Mechanics,
of or mechanics? Okay.
mechanics.
Um, well, I think I think that that question is multifold. The the biggest problem is we're still stuck in the rut where they kind of vilified the trades. Okay, like when I went to high school in the '90s, and all they said to me the whole time was the counselors pounded that idea in your head. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. If you don't go to college, you know you're going to be working at McDonald's flipping burgers. But
Yeah.
no one ever said anything to me about the trades. Never one time. I didn't really know anything about it, right? When I was a teenager. I mean, a little bit, but not enough. Not enough to know that you can actually make a really good living at it. So they kind of vilified the trades from like the end of the 80s through the 90s. And even still, now school administrators are realizing that that was a big fuck up. And
It was.
they're trying to reverse that now, which hey, it's different people now that are in control and they want to fix what the people before them did. I understand, but I think that part of the problem is um, people don't, you know, the young kids want to be, tech bros and they want to do online commerce and all this stuff. They're not really interested in work with their hands because they haven't really given any they've never been given any experience with that. Like only the kids that go to like the vocational technical schools in your districts or counties actually get to do and see any of that stuff. So that's why I think it's dwindling. Is that you know I go to these job fairs and talk to kids, and maybe out of the 300 or 400 that are there, maybe 10 will talk to me, which they actually either their parents told them or someone told them that there's value in learning a skill or a trade as opposed to going to college. And I talk to high school kids all over my county and multiple counties. I go to them, they come to me, and there's a lot of benefits to joining the trades, and that shortage is just continuing to grow, especially like trades like auto mechanics. Welders is a big one. There's nowhere near enough welders in this country for the amount of work and energy that's going on. um, Carpenters, plumbers, electricians, it's all we're getting a big shortage of those because people are getting old. You know, of course, I'm a plumber, and the folks in my group, the average age right now, I think, is 47. So that's pretty old, and we're trying to tamp that down by taking apprentices at trying to get them right out of school to get younger guys involved in it. But um, the there is a lot of value in being in the trades. Uh, I, of course, being in the union, we of course have a pension, retirement, healthcare, all that stuff. Um, there's a lot of value, and I hope that young people start realizing it more and more, and that's why we're so active as the union trades, going to high schools and trade schools and going to VOTEC schools and trying to get those students interested in the trades. There was a study that was done about 4 or 5 years ago by the national, or I'm sorry, by North American Building Trades Unions, NAB2, and that's our international group. And they did a study, and it said that they found out that 85% of journey workers, which is someone who graduated from the apprenticeship program, 85% of journey workers in the trades make more than people with a 4-year college degree.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting to a point with college degrees. Guys go to college to get a business degree like everybody else does. You got 50 to 100 grand in college loans, and you get a
Right.
job coming out making 40 grand a year. Financially, that just makes no sense at all. The trades are, I mean, I never worked in the trades, but I can tell you this: if you own a house and you need to hire a plumber or an electrician, you got to wait a month before they fucking come. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, it's true. I mean, unless it's a dire emergency, but you'll pay dearly for that. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
you will pay dearly on an emergency. But I make this example to high school kids, and there's a college here, and it's a really nice college. There's actually multiple colleges, but this particular one, actually, Rebecca went to this college, and I tell the kids, we'll sit down and I'll be in a classroom with these kids, and I'll be up front, and I'll say, let's do a little math problem, an easy one, and I'll say, do you guys know how much it costs to go to this university? And none of them know. And I go, it costs about $40,000 a year to go to this college, local college. And then like eyes are wide. And I said, so if you want to go there and get a 4-year degree, what do you have? What do you get when you leave? And they kind of look blankly. No one ever answers it. Actually, once in a while, someone does. But I said, you get a piece of paper with your degree on it and $160,000 in debt. That's
Hey,
what you're guaranteed when you leave that college. I said, when you join the trades, if you get into a union apprenticeship program, it's a scholarship program. So you pay zero out of pocket. We pay to educate you. We give you a job on day one where you go to work during the day and then you go to school at night at our school for free. We educate you in the classroom or hands on in our shops and labs, totally out of zero out of pocket expense to you. So after 5 years, when you complete the program, you have a job that pays a living wage with benefits. You got the education for free, and you owe zero. You're debt free.
Well, the one big thing, I work for a school district. My wife worked for a school district, so we have a pension.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I've told my sons, I said that pension is a fucking game changer. It changes everything as far as how you go into your older years. Um, but if you get a college degree and get a business job someplace, good
No
luck trying to
pension.
find a fucking pension. Those
No.
pensions don't exist. You might get a 401k, but that's vastly different than you can get a 401k and have a pension. That pension
Sure.
makes a difference. And when you're talking about the trades, we're talking about pensions there.
Every trade has a pension. And that's one thing that I bring up to the kids that I talk to. And and I even say to them, I'm like, I know you guys are young and you're not like you're still in school. You're not thinking about retiring. It's ridiculous, I know, to think about. It's ridiculous to think about, but it's still important to plan for. I and I asked them, how many people here know what a pension is? And maybe one will know because they'll
Yeah.
raise their hand because their parents worked at a shop that had a pension or something like that. Or they're in the trades, their parents were an electrician or something like that. So I'm like, who can explain to me what the difference between a defined benefit pension plan is and a 401k? And none of them can. And I said, think about it like this. I said, a 401k is great. You, and you work your career, and let's say you put $400,000 in your career into that 401k. That's amazing. That's great. When you get to retire, you can draw on that money and you'll do okay, right? And you'll get Social Security, hopefully, hopefully. Um, but if you have a pension, it's vastly different. And I make it simple numbers. I tell them when you work and you have a pension and you earn a pension credit yearly. I said, and the number I use is 100. I said, imagine that a yearly pension credit is $100 and you work 40 years and you work steadily along and you got a pension credit every year. I said, when you go to retire, you will collect $4,000 a month for the rest of your life till the day that you die. You'll collect that money. I said, if you only have a 401k and you retire at 60 years old and you have 400,000 in there and you live to be 95, that's really not that much money in the grand scheme of things
No.
to live that long. I said, and by the time you get to that elderly age, you're not going to be able to pay your bills anymore.
But if you
So
have both,
if you have both, you're golden
yeah.
because you have that pension to support you. And sometimes certain pensions they get cost of living adjustments too. So even though the price of things go up, sometimes they give you a little bump up, as time goes on. So, you know, 401ks are great, but if you can get into somewhere that has a pension, oh my God. And that's what I tell these kids. I'm like, take this information and I give them paperwork. I said, take this home and show it to your parents and ask them what you should do. And I've gotten callbacks a lot from, I had parents call me and say, how do I sign them up? It's really, it's amazing, to be a part of that and help people. I really take a lot of joy in it, to be truthful with
Well, absolutely. My oldest son works for municipal utilities,
you.
and he
Mm-hmm.
has a pension. He has a pension, and at his age of 38, he doesn't not thinking about a pension. I said, dude, if you get another job offer and they don't have a pension, they better be paying you a lot of fucking money because
Right.
it's going to make a huge difference to you You're 38 now. I remember when I was 38. I'm 65 now. That happens very quickly. And you want
Yeah,
to make sure you're covered. You don't want to have to work till you're 75.
no, yeah. It, I would never if you're in a utility company like a gas or electrical provider or something that has a pension, you'd be crazy to give that up. I mean, I I figured it out. I didn't, when I was younger, I didn't care in my 20s, and then when I got to be in my late 20s, early 30s, I realized the value in that later on because some of the people I worked with started to retire. And then they told me, this is what I'm going to get when I retire. And so it kind of hit me in my late 20s like, I'm really glad I did what I did because I'm going to have that benefit waiting for me too when the day comes for me to retire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, whether you're a plumber, electrician, or welder, you're not going to lose your job to AI.
No,
AI doesn't have the ability to do that. It's security, it's a pension, and it's good pay. I mean, when somebody goes through the whole thing after 5 years, goes through the thing and starts working as a plumber, how much can they make?
how much can they make? Well, the sky's the limit on what you can make, but I can give you like real world numbers.
Okay.
The going rate right now in my area. Now this varies throughout the United States, and I actually think Minneapolis is a little bit higher than me. But in my world right now, a commercial journeyman or journey worker, commercial journeyman after they complete the apprenticeship is $51 in the check. 51 on the check plus about 28 bucks in benefits. So we're basically about 79 bucks an hour total
Yeah, when you say
package.
51 on the check, you mean $51 an hour.
Yes, $51 an hour on the check, and then basically about $29 in benefits.
So if you were to add that up, I didn't mean to go all 51 plus 29, is it?
Yes, yeah, roughly. That's roughly.
I'm just trying to figure out what this is. 80 bucks an hour
Hmm.
times 40 is 3,200 a week, which
Hmm.
puts you at almost 13,000 a month. That's
Right,
that's into the six figures. Just starting out.
right. Well, that's graduates. If you're starting out as an apprentice, like a
No, I meant
first
as
year
a
apprentice.
graduate.
Oh, as a graduate, yeah, as a graduated journey worker, yeah. Now, bear in mind that the 51, that would be in your pay. The benefits you don't really see in your check. Okay, those go into trust funds for you. So the healthcare is a certain dollar amount per hour that's paid on your behalf. The retirement annuity, or what you might call a 401k, is paid on your behalf out of that money. Same with the pension. We have other benefits too. We have a health reimbursement account where you can, get your co-pays. You have that Flex Benny card, pay your co-pays and your prescriptions with. Um, so out of that package of benefits, it's paid on your behalf, but it doesn't go in your check and come out. Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you're saying, but while while it doesn't come to you in cash, it is a benefit to you, either
Right.
immediately or down the road. Okay, so at 51 bucks an hour, we're at 2,000 a week and
Hmm.
8,000 a month. Still a lot better if you're coming out of college and getting a $40,000 a year job
Yeah,
and not being able to pay for your loans.
you're making over 100 grand. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you know, typically, on a year, be making around 100.
All that means to me is after all those years thinking how much I made as a radio guy, I should have been a fucking plumber. I would have been a lot better off had I been a plumber.
I'm
I
not
want
gonna
to
lie.
talk.
I'm
Go
not gonna
ahead.
lie to you, Mike. It's hard fucking work, man. And
Oh, I
it's
know.
it's it's dirty work,
Yeah, no, I
but
know
it's
it
it's
is.
reward. But it's rewarding work. Rebecca she yells at me because we'll have people in from out of town, and we'll be driving somewhere, and I'll be like, yeah, I built that building and I built that, and she's like, just shut up, you know what I mean? Like we know you built all these buildings, but you take a lot of pride in that because you construct something that's going to outlast you. These buildings that I help build are going to be, once I'm dead, they're still going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about what Trump's doing now. Trump is over in Asia. He went to Malaysia yesterday, and I saw some of the footage of it. And these Asian folks apparently don't like Donald Trump because there were big crowds of signs, no Trump,
Yeah,
and
no
all this
Trump.
stuff. And I'm sure Donald Trump's going to tell us it's all AI. But as I understand it, he's going to meet with the president of South Korea, the leader in Japan, and he's also going to meet with Xi in China. Now, they announced yesterday, well, we've got a framework for a deal with China. Really, Donnie,
No.
because you've told us twice before that the deal was done. And then
Yeah,
China tells us, no, it's not done.
there's
So
no
now he's got
deal.
a framework. Now,
Yeah, there's no deal. They're not going to make any deal. If anything, they're going to go back to whatever it was pre-tariff. Like that's the only deal that's going to happen because otherwise we're going to head into a recession and the economy is going to implode. That's what's at stake if we don't work with the Asian countries that we do business with as far as trade. We're going to be sunk. I mean, South Korea's already pissed at us about what they did down there in Georgia. ICE came and detained all their people and put them in handcuffs. They're already pissed at us.
and they
Now
don't want to
Donald,
deal with us.
yeah, now Donald Trump wants to go over there and fuck around with them, threaten them some more, and bully them. Yeah, that's gonna work real good, Donnie. It's gonna work real good.
So, given who Donald Trump is and the way he does business, I mean, nobody wants to work out a deal with Donald Trump because you can't trust that he's going to
No,
stick to any deal that he agrees on. And so he doesn't get the deals done with China. He makes it worse in Canada. He doesn't have a deal with Mexico. He doesn't have all this stuff. We're seeing the effects on the economy now, and it's not good. Prices are going up, jobs are going away. Um, where do you think that brings us? You're more of a financial guy than I am. You invest in all that stuff. I invest in commodities like food and shelter, but I'm not really an investor. But how do you see this economy going, presuming that nobody does anything to fix anything, and presuming that Donald Trump will take it a step further and make things worse?
well, one thing I can say is I'm gonna move some of my money out of the market into bonds because I just see that the writing on the wall coming down here. If this trade war stuff continues, the market's it's gonna crash. I mean, it's the inevitable, and different people I've spoken with that are investment people that are way leagues way above me. I mean, they're like, I'm moving money in the bond market because I have a feeling that the stock market's going to take a shit if this trade war continues. I mean,
What?
domestic business is going to be ruined because all the materials and different things, whether we like it or not, we buy we get a lot of materials to construct things here from China. I know that people don't like that or whatever, but that's the fucking reality. And it's not just China, it's Vietnam, it's the Philippines, Taiwan. We get a lot of materials to construct things here in the United States from out of the country in Pacific Asia. So this trade war shit that's going on, that if Donald Trump escalates it, which I have a feeling he's going to, because he's going to get pissed off, you know, he's not going to be able to make the deals he wants where he gets everything and they take it in the shorts because they're never going to go for that. So
Right.
he's going to, throw another 10% on Vietnam and throw another 10% on the Philippines, throw another 10% on South Korea because he's not going to get his way. He's going to pound and kick his feet against the floor like he always does. And that's going to be detrimental to the markets here. I mean, it's the inevitable, and I don't know how far out that's going to be. Whether it's another 10 months, was it 14 months? I don't know, but if this keeps up, we're going to head for a disaster in the market.
Well, yeah, that's the weird thing about the market. I don't know anything about the stock market. My brother was a broker for a time, so he does know some things. And I was talking to him about it this weekend. Um, when Donald Trump first started talking about tariffs, the Dow Jones went from 44 down to 39,000.
Hmm.
And then it started working its way back up. And now, of course, all the Trump-fucks are saying, well, it's broke a record, it's broke a record. But if you look at where it was when Joe Biden left and where it is now, it's maybe gone up 1.5% or 2%
Yeah.
from what it was. Why is it still up there when we know what's going on and the economy is doing what it's doing? Why is the stock market still where it is?
Why is it still where it is? Because
Why
it's
hasn't it
still,
dropped yet?
I think that it hasn't dropped yet because we're still on the coattails of a lot of things that were happening from last year.
Yeah,
So we're still riding that wave a little bit. But if the thing about the stock market is all the investors in there, the big time investors, they need stability. And
yeah,
so when it's unpredictable, that's when they get nervous and they start moving things around. And that's when things start to crash. So I think that, you know, we're still riding a wave of what's been going on previous to this, but it's not going to last, especially if some more of the, this whole thing with Canada, with adding another 10% on them. And now with Asia, I imagine that it's not going to end well, this whole trip over there. So I don't know. I don't know why it hasn't. Here's what I do know. If you look at the rate of growth, okay, between when Biden was president and now where we're at today, the rate of growth is like nil compared to how it was growing when Joe Biden was president. That's what
sure.
I do know. The growth it's stagnant. So maybe we're not spiraling into a disaster yet, but we're not growing anywhere either. We're not gaining like we were gaining when Joe Biden was president because actual things were happening here that were a plus. You know, all the infrastructure work that Trump canceled is gone. That was a big investment. And there was other types of projects through rescue plan money and other things that were happening to help stir up new business and attract people to start businesses and bring business from other countries here, and all that stuff got canceled too. So I think that it's just the inevitable. It's just how long before it happens.
Absolutely. I wanted to mention something else about SNAP too that maybe people aren't considering. If the SNAP programs go away, that's going to be devastating for the people who count on SNAP to feed their families, without question. That's also going to have a pretty significant effect on the grocery business and distribution business. There's going to be a lot of money that's normally spent that isn't spent. It's almost like U.S. aid. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
cut the money going to U.S. aid, and then you fuck the farmers. That's going to kind of fuck a lot of people in the grocery business if, in fact, the SNAP benefits end.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's millions of dollars monthly that gets spent at all kinds of retail grocers, and they're going to take the hit. I mean, that's they're going to be throwing out a lot more products than they would be, any other time because people aren't coming into, they're not able to come in and make those millions of dollars of purchases every month. I mean, it's going to hurt the grocers big time. And really, like, there's only like three companies anymore that own all the grocery stores. And I'm not talking about, Ma and Pa's little market store on the corner. I mean, there's a few of those left, but all the major grocery stores are owned by basically three companies
Yeah. We're coming down to the end, and I wanted to bring something up because something else happened. Donald Trump has got all these investigations into the likes of Jack Smith, Letitia James, John Bolden. He came out yesterday and he said, we need to do some investigations into that 2020 election, the big lie, if you will. So he wants the DOJ to look into that. Apparently, drug and child traffickers aren't important anymore. They're going to do these bullshit investigations. But I was intrigued to listen to what's going on with Jack Smith. Jack
Yeah,
Smith and his lawyer Abby Lowell are very smart guys. Um,
right.
the woman, the bimbo that Donald Trump has as the prosecutor with the DOJ, or
Hallegren.
Hallegren, the Southern District or something,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
Hallegren.
not so smart. But what it sounds like Jack Smith is doing is Jack Smith alone could end all those investigations because, first of all, he's saying Hallegren isn't legally supposed to be able to do what she's doing. And if that's the case, all the fucking things are thrown out. Secondly, Jack Smith is saying, there's a lot of stuff I'm going to need in discovery, stuff that Donald Trump probably doesn't want out there. But Jack Smith is going to push him in the corner to either do that or drop the charges against him. It's going to be
Right.
interesting to see what Donald Trump does here because Jack Smith will back that fucker into a corner so quickly and he won't know what hit him.
Yeah, well, he's going to talk go out because, like you said, Jack Smith's a smart guy. He's going to ask for things that are going to harm Donald Trump if they come out to light, right? So he's
Right.
going to talk go out, and all of a sudden, oh, the charges are dropped. They're going to be gone or you know, dismissed somehow, But I want Jack Smith to testify in front of Congress. And he's
That's the other thing
offering
he
that.
wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I want him. And he said, I'm not doing it unless it's in public, which is, the way it has to be because the Republicans will do it behind closed doors and then lie about everything that was said in there, right? So I want him to testify. That would be the best thing that could happen this year, short of getting the Epstein files.
Well, and Jack should be able to get that opportunity because they pretty much besmirched his credibility and his reputation by saying
Right.
what he should have an opportunity to protect himself. They
Sure.
said they want initially they said they wanted Jack Smith to testify. And then Jack Smith says, "Cool, let's do it. But let's do it
Right.
in public." So do you think the Republicans just conveniently forget about that thing and never bring him to Congress?
Yeah, they're going to backpedal on it. Jim Jordan will get out there and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to have Jack Smith testify," and then they're not going to do it because they know though they're going to be sunk if he does. Well, Donald Trump's going to be sunk.
Yeah, so what happens if the Jack Smith takes a shit, the Letitia James situation takes a shit, if they investigate the 2020 election, that will take a shit. Not so sure
Right.
about John Bolton. There might be some more things they
Yeah,
could go after him. And I don't really care because I don't like fucking John Bolton, but um, I don't know. It's what happens if none of this plays out? How does he distract from that?
I don't know. They'll try to hide it some way. Even James Comey, like
Yeah.
all a bunch of prosecutors said it's a ridiculous notion. The entire case is absolutely foolish, and the judge is going to be pissed when they see what the claims are in this case. So,
Uh,
which is great. I mean, that's great, and those things need to be brought up over and over and over again once they happen.
I, I
Because
have
the
to
main,
correct I have to correct
go
what I
ahead.
said. I said that Jack Smith, lawyer, was Abby Lowell, and he wants discovering all that stuff. That was actually James Comey and his lawyer that want that.
Oh,
Jack Smith was the one that said, "I want to testify."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, that shit's all going to be thrown out, and they're going to do something to try to distract from it again. But we can't. We got to keep bringing it up and bringing it up and rubbing it in their face over and over again. Because when they do this stuff, the mainstream media is not gonna. They're not going to cover it. They're going to run a little thing on a ticker on the screen. Charges were dropped against James Comey. They're not going to. They're going to just keep doing what they're doing and cowtailing to Donald Trump.
Yeah, no question about that. Well, we're coming to the end. We're going to wrap things up. I want to remind folks if you have questions, comments, or perspectives that you want to get across, we're going to try something different. I have a tablet that I use, and it's an Android, and it has cell service, so you can text me your questions, comments, what have you, and I'll look at it every day and we'll talk about it. It won't be a whole show like we've done in the past, but we will keep up at the beginning of the show some questions and comments. So all you have to do is text your questions to 612 900 1057. 612 900 1057. So we'll see how that works. Well, TJ, I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on in short notice.
Sure, no
I feel a
problem.
lot.
And tell
I feel a lot better about this one than I did yesterday.
and tell fucking Ed he better be on Saturday.
Well, yeah, yeah. Ed missed 2 weeks ago because he had something going on, and then he
Hmm.
couldn't be on this week because I wasn't in town. So
Right.
yeah, you're right. I will be sending him a note on Thursday saying, "Are you going to be there, bitch?" And I think he probably will. He enjoys doing the show as much as we enjoy having him on. So I think he will,
Yeah.
unless the bottom falls out or he's got some doctor's appointment or whatever. So yeah.
Right. And one more note. I really enjoyed the Old Soul podcast from Japan. I'm glad she's having a good time and that's working out. Because that's a really terrible situation to be put in for her, you know. So I'm glad that things are working out for her over there.
Well, she still has to leave her honey, as she calls him,
Right.
in Japan when she finally comes back. And that's a tough situation. But hopefully, over a short period of time, we can get that figured out and she can get back to doing what she's doing and
Sure.
still be close to her loved one and and his kids too. She loves the kids too. So this is kind of a tough time for her. I suspect, as
Sure.
she said, she'll be back in about 2 weeks, and we'll talk to her again and see how it's going at that point. But thank you very much. Give my best to Rebecca. We'll probably do a
Yeah.
live here pretty soon, so we'll see on that one whenever.
She
Uh, go ahead.
she would have been on, but she wasn't feeling well tonight. So sorry, everyone.
Yeah, well, we'll get her on here, and as I've told you before, it doesn't have to be TJ and Rebecca. If Rebecca just wants to come on alone, she can do that too. Uh,
Well, that's a hard sell, but you can try it.
I'll give it a shot. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. If we get you both, that's good too. Those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again soon.